Hello everyone, Mr. Lai here. Today we're going to look at the price mechanism, the signaling, incentive, and rationing function. So what is the price mechanism? This refers to the mechanism where the three functions of price serves to provide signals to stakeholders of where resources are required, allocate scarce resources amongst competing users, and to ration scarce resources. Now let's look at the signaling function of price. The price changes, so when the price changes, it sends contrasting messages or signals to consumers and producers about whether to enter or leave a market. What does it mean by contrasting? Meaning that it is the same signal, but it is interpreted differently by the different stakeholders. Let's look at the diagram here. Okay, so here we have a demand and supply diagram, and there is an increase in the demand for the good or product. Let's say that this is chocolates and people are wealthier and they now want to buy more chocolates, and that's such a great choice. Graphically, this is shown by a rightward shift in the demand curve from D1, okay, D1 here to D2. Now let's look at what happens in terms of the signals. When the price increases from P1 to P2, this is actually sending a signal to the supplier to increase the quantity supplied from Q1 to Q3. It is telling them, hey, the price is now at P2, please supply more, okay? Increase your quantity supply from Q1 to Q3. On the other hand, it is sending a contrasting message or signal to the consumers. How does that take place? At the existing price P1, okay, when the demand has increased, can you see that the quantity demanded increased from Q1 all the way up to Q2, okay, at the existing price P1. However, when the price increases to P2, this is actually telling the consumers, hey, your quantity demand, please reduce it to Q3. It is sending them signal to reduce the quantity demanded from Q2 all the way to Q3, where the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied is the same. The market equilibrium is restored at P2, Q3, and the market clears. Just to repeat, can you see how it's a contrasting signal? Because it is telling, on the one hand, it is telling the suppliers to enter the market, okay, supply more at Q3, and on the other hand, it is telling the consumers to demand less, okay, reduce the quantity demanded from Q2 to Q3. This is, however, only half the story. Okay, there's also something called the incentive function of price. An incentive is something that motivates a producer or consumer to follow a course of action or to change the behavior. Now, in this picture here, this is a very bad example of what an incentive looks like. Here, students are being paid, okay, to get good grades, and this certainly doesn't happen with teachers, okay. But I've heard that sometimes parents may or may not do that, okay. So that's really rumors. So higher prices provide an incentive to existing producers to supply more because they provide the possibility of more revenue and increased profits. Let's look at the diagram here again. Once again, same thing, increase in the demand for chocolates because people are more wealthy, thereby leading an increase in the equilibrium price from P1 to P2. Now, before we said that it is sending them a signal, okay, for them to enter the market. This is actually incomplete. Just because I'm sending them a signal, just because the price is sending the suppliers a signal, doesn't mean that they have to follow the signal, right? But actually, this is where the incentive function kicks in. By raising the price to P2, this is actually incentivizing them to enter the market. They're telling them, well, hey, come and sell more because with a higher price, you can actually earn more profits. Therefore, with a higher price, it is incentivizing producers to enter the market and therefore increasing the quantity supplied from Q1 all the way up to Q3. Okay, as I've written here, when the price has increased from P1 to P2, it is incentivizing the producers to enter the market, and they will respond by increasing the quantity supplied from Q1 to Q3. Look at how I use the word supplied, okay, because this is a price factor change, okay. On the other hand, okay, when the price increases from P1 to P2, at the existing price level, the quantity demanded is at Q P2. And therefore, when the price increases, it is disincentivizing the consumers from consuming as much, and the quantity demanded will be reduced from Q2 to Q3 where the market clears. Okay, again, just because there's a signal the price is higher, why should the consumer demand less? Well, because there's a reverse incentive function here. The fact that the prices are now more expensive is disincentivizing the consumers from consuming as much chocolates, and therefore they will reduce their consumption from Q2 to Q3. Now we arrive at the last part of the third function, the rationing function. Whenever resources are particularly scarce, demand exceeds supply and prices are driven up. The effect of such a price rise is to discourage demand, conserve resources, and spread out their use over time. The greater the scarcity, the higher the price, and the more resources is being rationed. Can you name some example? Diamonds, okay, clean water, in maybe perhaps developing countries, precious minerals, rare earth, okay, those might be examples that you might be thinking about. Let's look at this in terms of the graphics. Look at here, same story. Demand has increased from D1 to D2 because people now like more chocolates. At price P1, okay, the quantity demanded increases all the way up to Q2. Now, given the firm's productive capabilities, the rationing function kicks in with an increase in the price of P2. What's the story here? At the price P1, the people the amount of chocolates they want to demand is all the way up to Q2 here. However, there is excess demand because the quantity supplied is only at Q1. There is an excess supply here. There's an excess demand here. How does the rationing function kicks in? What's being rationed? And that comes through when the price increases from P1 to P2. Quantity demanded decreases to Q3 and the market clears. Consumers wanted Q2 amounts, but due to the problem of scarcity, which is largely determined by the productive capabilities of the firms, the market has reined in. Okay, they've pulled it back in by increasing the price. Sorry, you cannot have Q2, but you may have Q3, assuming that you are willing to pay Q2. Okay, I'm assuming you're willing to pay P2. Therefore, can you see there's this direction of the arrows here? You want Q2? Sorry, you can't, but you may have Q3. Therefore, the quantity demanded has the demand or the quantity supply has increased all the way to Q3, but not Q2 as the consumers wanted at the existing price P1. Now, take a look at this. Where the productive capability is largely constrained. Here we're introducing a concept called elasticity of supply, where the steepness of the supply curve reflects the productive capacity of the firm. So here we have a firm which is very inelastic, very supply inelastic, meaning that the productive capability is very constrained. Okay. Same story here. Chocolates increase from D1 to D2, and at the existing price of P1, they want chocolates all the way up to Q2 here. However, because the supply is very constrained, perhaps it uses rare ingredients to make these chocolates, the price shoots up from P1 to P2. The market, through the increase in the price from P1 to P2, is rationing the product. Follow here. The price, when it increases from P1 to P2, is rationing the product. How? It's telling the consumers that if you want to buy more, you may, but at a higher price. At the same time, you cannot have Q2 amounts. You can only have Q3. Even if you're willing to pay a higher price, you can only increase the amount bought by this much, Q3 minus Q1, okay? Do you see how it's very rationed, okay? You want it all the way up to Q2? Sorry, you cannot have Q2. You can only have Q3, which is a little bit more than Q1, and you have to pay a much higher price than that. If you think about it, by increasing the price substantially, okay, it is actually passing a signal to the consumers that to telling them to leave the market. Sorry, you cannot have this much. I cannot meet your demand. Okay, you can only have Q3 amounts, and therefore it's reining it in. Okay, it's rationing it greatly. Okay, as you can see here. Let's look at this diagram. What's happening here? Here you can see that the supply curve is much shallower, and in terms of the concept of elasticity, we say that it is highly elastic. Can you see how this is actually an opposite scenario where at the existing price P1, the increase in the demand for chocolate increases the demand from D1 to D2, okay, and the quantity demanded increases from Q1 to Q2. There is a rationing function, okay, but then, hey, look, it's saying that, oh, the price actually increased a little bit only from P1 to P2 because, hey, I have spare capacity. Perhaps I can easily make these chocolates. Therefore, there is a bit of a rationing function where it's reined in a little bit. You cannot have up to Q2, but hey, close to it. You can have Q3 amount. Do you see that the distance here is actually much smaller than what was in the previous diagram here? This is the market telling you that it is very easy for me to increase the supply, and therefore I don't need to ration as much. Okay, you can have near what you wanted, and I'm only rationing you a little bit. And this is shown not only by in the kind of like the small bounce back, but this is actually through the price mechanism. Okay, the price only raised a little bit. Okay, telling the consumers that, hey, I'm going to discourage you a little bit, but you can, but not by much, because here the supply I'm able and willing to supply all the way up to Q3. Okay, so guys, there you have it. This is the three functions of price: the signaling, incentive, and the rationing function of price. If we actually look at this, this actually works together at the same time. Increase in the demand from D1 to D2 leads to an increase in the price from P1 to P2. The price from P1 to P2 is sending a signal to the suppliers, hey, increase your supply, okay, from Q1 to Q3. At the same time, it is telling the consumers to leave the market, sending them signal for them to leave the market a little bit, okay, reduce your quantity demanded from Q2 to Q3. Why should I do that? That is through the incentive function, okay? I'm incentivizing you to produce more through the increase in price, and I'm disincentivizing the consumers by increasing the price and telling them to leave the market. And thirdly, you can see the rationing function taking place where the consumers, they want to consume all the way up to Q2. Sorry, you cannot. But then because my productive capability is actually quite good, you can have Q3, okay? And at the small encouragement, that this small disincentivizing reins it back in, rations it back in, where the equilibrium of P2 Q3 here is restored. Okay, hope that was clear. Have a great day, everyone.